started. We're going to have another judge be joining us mid-session. In such august company, I guess I should say, may it please the court. My name is Peter Hammer. I'm the director of the Damon J. Keith Center for Civil Rights, and we want to welcome you all here to a really wonderful, exciting program. I want to say a few things about Black History Month and the significance of Black History Month. It's a time of action and reflection. It's very important to know that the vestiges of racism and discrimination still exist with us, still must be made manifest, and still must be acted upon. So while we're here to celebrate accomplishments, here to reflect upon some of our victories, it's also important to be recognizing the work that still needs to be done. I am duly cursed in my life. I have a law degree and a PhD in economics. I get driven by data. Data speaks to me. Right? If you worry about data, we can translate data into evidence under appropriate circumstances, you see profound racial disparities that define modern America. Profound racial disparities in outcomes in education, outcomes in wealth, outcomes in health. Right? I then see that evidence as a way to look backwards into these institutions and structures that produce those inequalities. And as I argue to my own students, an understanding and a fight against structuralized racialization really is the civil rights challenge of our generation. And structural racism is the inter-institutional dynamics that produce those disparate outcomes that I see in the data. But it's not just institutions. At the Detroit Equity Action Lab that the Key Center is sponsoring, we're going to have a national expert in to talk to our cohort next week about the issue of implicit bias. Right? The research that establishes implicit bias produces evidence, which could be introduced in court, right? Establishing through psychological tests that people, right, internalize the biases that are in society writ large and act upon them. Right? You look at the empirical evidence for European Americans disproportionately and outrageously strong statistical percentages implicitly have biases in favor of European Americans. Right? It's worse than that. Racialization gets internalized. If you look at the data, it's smaller in proportion, but it is still pronounced. African Americans maintain an implicit bias in favor of European Americans. Right? I view that as evidence. Right? Evidence of what? A whole series of beliefs, mythologies, histories, narratives, media that are reinforcing different sets of racial stereotypes. Right? That is what we have to be focusing on in terms of our generation. And in that corollary, we're sort of seeing the evolution of belief systems. It's very important for law students to be associating all of this coded discussion about colorblindness, and colorblindness operates as a belief system in mythology. The lineage of colorblindness goes straight up to white supremacy. And if we're not seeing those connections, we're not taking the appropriate legal, strategic policy actions to address them. Right? That takes us to our panel today, which is really also a time to celebrate, as well as to provide insight and inspiration. Do Black judges make a difference? Right? I cannot be the director of the Damon J. Keith Center for Civil Rights and answer that question in anything but a profound yes. And indeed, if you look at the judge's biography, Crusader for Justice, one of the strong arguments inside the book is a sustained meditation on the significance of Black judges. And by Black judges, I want to diversify that and say women judges, gay judges, wise Latina judges. Right? And you see how coded that language is, and what a backlash that gets into our present society when we're actually talking about these underlying truths. If Judge Keith did not grow up as an African-American man in our society, and I put this on experience, not on race. Race is socially constructed. Race doesn't exist, but his life experiences existed. That led him to be a profoundly different judge as a district court judge and an appellate court judge than he would have been if he had not been a Black American. He understood the physics of racism, and that physics is in his factual findings in Hamtramck about housing discrimination, in Stamps versus DTE, where he's talking about private employment discrimination, in Baker, which is police affirmative action cases. Right? He understood it, and he gave profoundly aggressive and effective remedies because he understood the dynamics that produce the harm, and he wanted to undo it. Right? His fights as a Sixth Circuit judge, right, sadly now increasingly in dissent to show the devolution of constitutional law since he took the bench in 1967, continues that struggle. And if you want some of the most passionate defenses of continuing court-ordered affirmative action after finding intentional discrimination, you'd have to look at some of Judge Keith's more recent dissents. Right? But he knows the legacy. He knows the importance of other Black judges. You don't know how much fighting went into picking the pictures, right? You know his office, you know how many pictures there are in his office. So how do you get just a handful, 60, a handful, many handfuls of those pictures? But he knew the one that he wanted to have towards the very end to show the evolution of black judges as part of the judiciary. And that's the work signifying what he did as part of the Just the Beginning Foundation, which is a collective honoring and collaborating and gathering and celebrating, right, and empowering minority judges. Right? So we have a picture here, which I'll show, of the gathering before the book was published in 2012 of the Just Beginning Foundation. And you imagine the growth that is taking place in the number of black judges at the federal level, at the state level, since 1967. And I think he would not be ashamed of saying that that is one of his biggest legacies. That's one of the biggest things that he can contribute forward, is the mentoring and the example he's provided to other judges. And we are profoundly proud to have 5 of those judges sitting here. I'm equally proud of our students. When people ask me what's the greatest asset in Wayne State, I say our students. And Tyrone Green is an example of that as the Vice President of ALSA. I had nothing to do with this preparation. Tyrone, take it away. It's your show.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your coming to our panel today. As you know, I'm going to introduce our judges, beginning with Judge Miller here on our left. Professor Hammer, unfortunately, Deborah has to make it. Beginning on our left, we have Judge Cylenthia Miller, was appointed judge of the 36th Judicial District Court on April 10, 2006, elected by the people of the city of Detroit in November 2006, and re-elected in November 2010. Judge Miller presides over cases in the misdemeanor and traffic division of the court, which includes traffic and ordinance misdemeanors and civil infractions. She is honored and humbled to serve on the largest district court in the state of Michigan and one of the busiest district courts in the country. Judge Miller has also worked as an adjunct professor of criminal justice at Baker College of Allen Park since the 2012 fall semester. Judge Miller received her Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from Wayne State University in 1988 and attended the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. She received her Juris Doctor cum laude from Michigan State University College of Law in 1996. Judge Miller was admitted to the State Bar of Michigan in 1996 and to the State Bar of Arkansas in 1997. She serves as chair of the Judicial Campaigns Committee and of the Nominations Committee of the Michigan District Judges Association. She is also a Golden Heritage Life member of the NAACP and a member of St. Charles Ranga Catholic Church, the Wolverine Bar Association, the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, the State Bar of Michigan, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the National Lawyers Guild, and the Democratic Party. Judge Miller is past president of the Association of Black Judges of Michigan, past chair of the Women Lawyers Division of the National Bar Association, past president of the Wolverine Bar Association, past president of the Women's Lawyers Association of Michigan, and a former Michigan Democratic Party precinct delegate in the 13th Congressional District. Throughout her career, Judge Miller has received numerous awards and honors, including but not limited to the Alvin L. Soares Outstanding Mentoring Award, Michigan Business and Technical Institute Humanitarian of the Year Award, the Association of Black Judges of Michigan Member of the Year Award, a Certificate of Congressional Recognition from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, the Distinguished Service Award from Detroit City Council, the Citizen Lawyer Award from the State Bar of Michigan, and many more. She is the daughter of George B. Miller Jr. and Sharon E. Bernard Miller, the first black couple to graduate from the University of Arkansas Law School. In fact, her mother is the first black woman lawyer in the history of the state of Arkansas. As the daughter of such trailblazers, Judge Miller was taught at a very young age the critical importance of service to the community, equal justice for all, and faith with works. Next, we have Judge Deborah Geraldine Ford, is the stalwart of the trial docket for the 36th District Court. In addition to just and fair adjudication of traffic cases, she has also quite effectively handled preliminary examinations, arraignments, civil lawsuits, and landlord-tenant disputes. Judge Ford brought a wealth of experience to the bench when first elected in 2004. Her broad and exceptional law career included positions with the Juvenile Defender Office, City of Detroit Law Department, clerk to Federal Judge Julian Abel Cook at the U.S. District Court, as well as a very successful tenure in private practice as a trial lawyer. Judge Ford is an involved member of a number of professional, civic, and social organizations, including the District Judges Association, the Black Judges Association, the Detroit Junior League, and the Junior League Gardeners, various committees at Plymouth United Church of Christ, the Palmer Woods Neighborhood Association, the Links, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Detroit Study Club, formerly the Friends of the Arts for Detroit Country Day School, and the Friends of the African American Museum, and more. A 1981 graduate of the Boston College School of Law, Judge Ford also holds 2 master's degrees from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's degree from Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. She has a certified floral license from the state of Michigan. George Ford is married to attorney Jerome R. Watson, a senior partner at Miller, Canfield, Paddock & Stone Law Firm. They have a 19-year-old daughter who is studying fashion at Parsons School of Design in Paris and 2 adult sons. Judge Ford is the daughter of the late Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, the first African-American female judge in Michigan, 1966, and one of the first women judges in the country. She is the niece of the late William Felga Bledsoe and a former jurist in the Highland Park District Court. Judge Ford and her mother are the first mother-daughter judges in Michigan and only the second in the country. She's also proud of the fact that her maternal grandfather, Harold Edward Bledsoe, was the first African-American Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. Next, we have Judge Denise Page Hood, a graduate of Yale University and Columbia University School of Law, presently serves as United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Michigan. She was nominated by President Bill Clinton and confirmed by the Senate in 1994. Judge Hood presides over numerous criminal and civil matters. She has served on the state court benches of 36th District Court, Recorder's Court, and Wayne County Circuit Court, and has worked as Assistant Corporation Counsel in the City of Detroit Law Department. Judge Hood is an active member of several professional organizations, co-chair of the Michigan State Planning Body for Legal Services, the State Bar Pro Bono Initiatives Committee, and the Detroit Metropolitan Bar Association Foundation Board. She is past president of the Detroit Bar Association and the Association of Black Judges of Michigan. In addition, she serves as a volunteer in various community groups, including the Olivet College Board of Trustees, the Harper Hutzel Hospital Board of Trustees, and the Inside Out Literary Arts Project Board. Judge Hood has been honored with the Augustus Straker Bar Association's 2014 Trailblazer Award, the Fair Housing Center of Metro Detroit's 2013 Fair Housing Attorney Appreciation Award, Olivet's College Leadership and Individual and Social Responsibility Award, Powerful Women of Purpose Award presented by Rhonda Walker Foundation, the Michigan Women's Foundation Women of Achievement and Courage Award, and many more. She was named one of UPN's Black History Month Hometown Heroes and received the Alternatives for Girls Role Model Award. Her review, Affirmative Action, Where Is It Coming From and Where Is It Going, was published in the University of Michigan's Journal of Race and Law. Judge Hood is married to Reverend Nicholas Hood III, Senior Minister of Plymouth United Church of Christ in Detroit. They have 2 sons. Judge Terrance Keith is currently serving as a Wayne County Probate Court Judge in Michigan. In December of 2010, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm appointed Judge Keith. Since then, Judge Keith was elected to the Wayne County Probate Court in 2012 and was recently re-elected in November 4th, 2014 to serve a full 6-year term. Judge Keith's educational background includes a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan and a Juris Doctor from the University of Detroit Mercy Law. After graduation from Mercy Law, Judge Keith piloted his career with placements within Wayne County, serving in positions such as the Chief Deputy Treasurer and the Principal Counsel for the Wayne County Corporation Council. And last we have Magistrate Judge Elizabeth Stafford. Judge Elizabeth Stafford joined the bench of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan as a magistrate judge on November 17, 2014. A native of Detroit, Magistrate Judge Stafford received her undergraduate degree from Michigan State University and her Juris Doctor from Wayne State University Law School. She began her career at the firm of Goodman, Eden, Millender, and Bedrosian, practicing in various areas of personal injury law, including automobile negligence, products liability, civil rights, governmental immunity, wrongful discharge, and general negligence. In 1998, she became a law clerk to the Honorable Victoria A. Roberts and served in that position for almost 4 years. In 2002, Magistrate Judge Stafford was an Assistant United States Attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan. During her 12 years in that role, she prosecuted a variety of criminal cases in both the trial and appellate levels, and was assigned to the Public Corruption Unit in 2010. In 2011, she received the U.S. Attorney's Office Alan M. Gershel and Michael Wicks Teamwork Award. And in 2013, she received the State Bar of Michigan Representative Assembly Unsung Heroes Award. I present to you our judges. We will begin our panel with the first question here. And I'll start with Judge Stafford. Judge Stafford, did the ratio of right to non-right attorneys and judges ever cause you to question or doubt your careers at any time?
No. And I think that the reason why has a lot to do with my personal journey. I started off as a second-year law student, clerking for Victoria Roberts at a law firm. And in that capacity, I worked very hard. I distinguished myself among the law clerks and was able to become an associate of the law firm. Then when Victoria was going through the process of becoming a district court judge, I followed her to the district court and became her law clerk. So I think that my personal journey was such that I had a very, very strong mentor. And I applied myself in a way that allowed me to have a secure career path. After clerking, as you heard, I did go to the U.S. Attorney's Office and again applied myself to become the best assistant U.S. attorney that I could. I think that in a lot of ways, there are implicit biases, as Professor Hammer emphasized, which are very real and very true. But I also think that some people put up their own barriers to advancement. And so one thing I would like to encourage the law students here to do is to use good judgment, work very hard in whatever position you're in, and seek to distinguish yourself in that position, not just from other people of color, but from all of your colleagues. So my personal journey was such that I was able to have the confidence of the people who I was working with, and I never had to question whether I could be successful in this career.
And Judge Keith, same question.
Repeat the question again, please.
If you, did the ratio of right to non-right attorneys and judges ever cause you to question or doubt your career roles at any point?
No,
No?
no. It was never a factor, intimidation in any way, shape, or form. I guess part of that is my historical perspective of black lawyers and judges in Detroit, in Michigan. And so I always knew, I was always aware that black lawyers, be they women or female, had do more to succeed. That's the short and simple answer.
Okay, and the next question, take it over to Judge Miller. Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to ask
First off, I want to thank everyone for inviting me here today. As a former BALSA president, I know how difficult and challenging it is to put on these programs, and thanks, Ty, for everything that you've done to organize today. Also to thank Professor Hammer for setting the tone today. I do believe that affirmative action is quite necessary. I think that sadly it is necessary still. I grew up in Arkansas, as you heard, and my parents, the legacy that they had, being the Trailblazers' first black couple to go to the University of Arkansas Law School, my mom being the first black woman lawyer. You don't grow up in that environment and not and be immune to what's going on in the world around you. You're very conscious of it. And growing up in that environment, seeing the kinds of things and I say we because my parents had my sister and I marching, protesting, sitting in, and everything from as long as I can remember. I mean, I was the state youth-wide chaplain for the NAACP at 5 years old in Arkansas. So I've been active a long time. Sadly, I feel like we're still fighting the same battles, and I'm 52 now. So this is very upsetting, you know, and discouraging in some respects. But it's also encouraging to look around and see the progress. We need to have greater progress, and I think affirmative action is one of those things that's essential to us achieving greater progress. Sadly, we still live in a time when people are not judged by the content of their character or their accomplishments or their abilities, but rather their skin color, their gender, their abilities or disabilities, etc. And I do believe that that is something that helps to even the playing field.
Okay, great. And Judge Hood, if I may call you, have you in your life or career ever experienced any discriminatory barrier that may have hindered your growth or gave you pause?
Can I answer all the questions?
Yes, of course.
I want to go back to the first question because I think that this group is a really unique group to answer the question whether or not the difference between the number of white attorneys and non-white attorneys in the community impacted the community. All of the people who are here, Magistrate Judge Stafford had a great mentor. Judge Keith is from a family of great mentors. Judge Cylenthia has great mentors. And Deborah Ford's mother was the first black woman elected in the state of Michigan. And that probably doesn't sound like anything to you guys, but that was in 1966. It is not that long ago. You know, it was like basically almost after most of the civil rights things had taken place. She was the first black woman elected. That means there were no black women on the bench in Michigan when we were in high school.
That's right.
Okay, so just, well, maybe I could be better. I was in high school. So I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that we're kind of a unique group of people up here to ask that question because our goals maybe were a little different because of the circumstances we came from. I wasn't any youth leader at 5 years old, but I know I got the little packet of NAACP memberships and said, go sell them to your neighbors, right? And so we have like a little bit of a unique thing. I mean, when I was in junior high school, a friend of mine in Columbus, Ohio, her father was running for city attorney. She basically called up all her little 7th grade friends and said, come and stuff envelopes. And her dad spoke to us about what he was doing and what a challenge that was. But you all need to look at it in the context of what if our goals were different? What if you want to be a lawyer in a big firm in Detroit? Then is that a different kind of goal that has a different challenge? And I would say yes. I mean, I've been going to the Federal Bar Association luncheons since 1994, and I've seen the number of black associates and lawyers in that, the number of them attending that luncheon changed from the 3 I could wave at across the room or thereabouts to a larger number than that, but I think Magistrate Judge Stafford would agree that it's not yet a third, you know. And so if your goal is to practice in a big, predominantly white corporation or a global corporation or to go to a big firm, that's a different kind of goal, and there's a different kind of attitude you have to have that toward that. That maybe is not, that's not the goal I don't think any of us really have. And because of that, I think we look at that question in a different way. So if you're looking at it in the context of what are the barriers in the, for lack of a better word, traditional white male lawyer jobs are greater, and they're still very, very great. So that's to that question. The second question was what? Whether or not I've had any issues that have, affirmative action. So let me just say, in that context, I don't know about everybody else on the panel, but I think that I benefited by that in a lot of different ways, okay? One of them is, at the time that I was coming through, sometimes corporations, law firms, any kind of agency, schools, they needed to have some black people in their midst. And when I went to high school, I know that I went there because they wanted, someone smart to come and be their first black graduate, okay? And so, it was an advantage to me for them to need to have someone in their midst to say we're an integrated school, even though I don't know that you could call it fully integrated at that time. And the same is true of the other places that I went. They were still interested in having what we would now call diverse, but back then we called integrated settings. So I think there is still, Sandra Day O'Connor said it would take 25 more years to run what after that. So I think you can look around and see just how that impacts applications at law school and who gets to be a law student, not just at Wayne, but at other schools in our community, whether or not the lack of being affirmative diminishes that number or chills people from applying. So I think that's one of the things that we need to look at relative to that. And then you wanted to know whether or not I ever suffered any, drawbacks.
Yeah, just a moment that gave you pause, made you think, or possibly just held you up.
Well, like I said, I think because of the goals I had, I didn't really ever feel held up. I mean, I came from an environment where I think I'm humble, but I have a good, healthy ego too. So, I mean, I finally got used to people when I was a lawyer asking me, where did you go to law school? To which I would answer. And, then they would ask me where I went to undergrad, like going to law school wasn't quite enough, and graduating. So I think that, there is some latent insult level that existed at a period of time, to which you just, I don't know, like Judge Keith, my family said, you need to go out there and be better than everybody else if you think you're going to do anything, and I just assumed everybody got that lesson at home and was doing that, which is not necessarily true. We'll talk about how you need to impart that, I guess, later. I will say a couple of things. I have been in a room where I made a suggestion, and the white males just blew past me. And then another white male made the same suggestion, and they said, that's a good idea. And he winked at me. He knew. They just blew me off, and that it needed to be said again, and he just kind of like smiled and shook his head. And I was like, well, at least the idea got out there, okay? But I think you have to be prepared for when that happens, what you're going to do about it. And maybe I'm getting on to another question, but I do think that part of what you're able to do is to maneuver that to a positive. And sometimes, you just want to say, I hate to tell you, but I just made that comment like 2 minutes ago. And other times you just want to say the goal is to have whatever you suggested take place. And so I think sometimes you're in a situation where you just, it's discrimination, and the liberal thinking people in the setting know it too. And sometimes the other people, they either don't know it or they intend it. And so you have to make a choice about whether or not it really is just ignorance or whether it's intentional and how you react to that I don't think I've ever been held back, but I might have a different attitude if I had wanted something that was more traditionally held for white males, although some would say that the job I have is like that. And so in that instance, I don't feel held back. I feel like, I don't know how to say this, but everybody here did what it took to get where they are, okay? It just didn't get handed to any of us. And to the extent it might have been handed to us, it wasn't any more handed to us than any other person that might have got it. And whether or not we're up to the task is something that you judge us by. And you have to always, I think like that. I think you probably have to think like that no matter what race you are. But I really think that African Americans need to feel like they belong. A friend of mine who was a CPA in a big, traditionally white CPA firm, we were once talking, and he said, you know, you belong. And I was like, that's right. And I think we have to think that we belong and should be in the places that we strive for.
Can I just?
Yes, of course.
All right, could I do you want to?
Yes.
Before I even all right, briefly, I am gonna just do what Judge Page Hood just did. That was an excellent job. So let me tie in a few of those ideas too and piggyback on them. Yes, my mother was the first African-American judge in the state. However, what you may not know, she was the third woman judge in the state. That was new history, okay? So I grew up with a mother that did not go back to school after I was born. My mother had the bar before I was born, okay? So I didn't observe a mother going through school. I observed a mother practice law from day one. She practiced with her father and brother in Bledsoe, Fort Bledsoe. That was their law office. My grandfather also, incidentally, was said he was the first African-American assistant attorney general. He tried to be a judge also. He just missed it to Judge Jones, the first black judge, in those political thought, so to speak. But he tried too. So that was kind of always in my folklore and history. I lived with my grandparents for a while, so I knew them. So it didn't, the whole idea about discrimination or being a judge, that did bypass me because of my life experience, right? My uncle did want to become a judge as well. But let me tell you some things. Judge Hood just mentioned, for example, your ideas being out there and no one notices until it's restated. My mother complained about that a lot. I noticed it in law school. I went to Boston College Law School. Just to tell you where I think, it's not like Rosa Parks at the back of the bus anymore. It's a little bit different. Let me tell you another area where I thought it was extremely pronounced. And for a woman, I believe being a woman is far more prejudicial than being black. That was my experience. I had my own law practice for a long time. I cannot express to you the bitter, Elizabeth, well, Judge Stafford, we're all friends, okay? This is my pastor's wife, it's my colleague, his father and my mother were the best of friends. We're friends, okay? I complained to her bitterly about the retainer fees. When I was practicing law, how much the men would get. This is all men. It didn't matter. He could be a short man, a tall man, a fat man. It didn't matter. It could be a dummy. They would try and hire my husband's lawyer. Try and hire him. I'm not exaggerating. He never even did a divorce case or a criminal case. He worked at Miller Canfield Patent Stone his whole career. I have seen people try to hire him over me, and that's exactly what I was doing. You cannot imagine, I believe, the amount of discrimination in terms of being female, dollar for dollar, when people are trying to hire you versus someone else. Usually a castaway, after they couldn't afford a man, they come to a woman. Or after they got grievously treated in some way, then they come to you, etc. So that's where I found, I thought the work, you watch, get out there and try to get paid like a man. All right? And that gets to my husband. He works at Miller Canfield Paddock and Stone. Where I see discrimination, economic, and that does fall under the rubric of institutional and structural. What that means, if there's a woman partner in his firm, she's a third generation lawyer, I am too. Why does she have so many affiliations with banks, bankers, insurance companies, and any other kinds of institutions that yield clients that can pay large fees? And the only connections we really had that I had to share were political. That is a manifestation of being shut out those last 2 or 3 generations and not being able to bring those type of clients through relationships. We never had them. We weren't able to do it. My mother indicated to me one day she wanted to be in a law firm. She said had she been coming along now, she would have been a partner. And she was shut out. So the highest she could be, and that it's not like it wasn't, but let's face it, she never even had an opportunity. I don't care how many A's she had to be in a law firm. Wade McCree was a law review student at Harvard. He couldn't get in. There was a point in time where you just couldn't get in. So at any rate, now we can get in. Can you bring the dollars through the door? Do you have access to the clients that create billables? You may have the ability. I believe that's the new frontier. Do I think we should still have affirmative action? Yes. Do I think we have it in the way I had it? No. I have a 19-year-old who just was applying to school. I know for a fact it's not the same. What do I tell her? You better muscle up. You better muscle up. The Asians and many others from around the diverse world, they're competing. They have accents and everything. Nobody's waiting. They're getting A's anyway. So that's my message.
Touch on that, because I have a lot of friends who are in law firms, major law firms around the city. And the point that Judge Ford touches on is significant in the historical context. Because when we were coming through as attorneys, affirmative action, diversity, integration, corporations, retaining law firms that had women lawyers, black lawyers, Hispanic lawyers, that was the game in town, if you will. And you could actually see that being leveraged in law firms, okay? In this city, Dennis Archer was one of the forefronts of that effort of bringing national corporations to not only diverse law firms across the country, but also in Detroit. Pay attention. The economic and the political landscape has changed. Where the Tea Party and the efforts to diversify and merge corporations has lessened. And what you see is less leverage being put on major corporations to have women, Hispanic, gay, lesbian attorneys as part of their staff. That puts a barrier on your ability to have that open door, or to have that door as wide open as it once was. That is a major piece that's going to continue over the next 20 years unless we, as a people, as a collective, start changing the political climate about that. That's the key piece behind all of this, is that we actively engage politically to leverage those corporations to have us as part of that process. We were fortunate. We were fortunate in that regard. And that's part of the reason, a key part of the reason we're here this afternoon.
May I take a crack at some of the other questions you
Yeah, sure.
And actually, I want to go back to the first question and whether, and you asked me about whether I thought it was a barrier. Something that I was remiss in noting is that I had other role models and other mentors, including Judge Hood. When I was in high school, I was in 9th and 10th grade. She and her husband Nick had a youth group, and my sister and a bunch of friends and I would go every Sunday and to the youth group meeting. We would go on trips. So Judge Hood is an example of a role model that I had that said to me, you can be a lawyer. I was one of the teens that was putting out campaign signed when she ran for judge. I said, you know, in my mind, that lets me know I can be a judge. If I apply myself, I'll contrast that with a young woman named Shatara, who I met last year. She was the first person in her family who was going to be graduating going to college. She didn't have that type of exposure. Super smart young woman. She goes to Northwestern. And when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, she spent a couple of weeks with us. And I took her to see Judge Roberts. And the three of us sat down and talked. And she wanted to know whether she could be a lawyer and wear her natural hair. She was concerned about the fact that she had, you know, folks in her family that had, you know, some baggage. And we were like, yeah, everybody does. And I should mention that Judge Roberts has dreadlocks. And so by talking to us, we were able to you know, let Shatara see that she could do it too. And so that's something that all of us need to reach back and talk to and mentor our young people to let them know that if we can do it, they can do it too. Here's something I do want to also emphasize, because Judge Hood talked about the fact that they wanted her to graduate from the high school because she was really smart. So they wanted her for that high school. And I think that that's the affirmative action that you're going to see now. And I still think that it is present in a lot of, I'll say, the Detroit area law firms, for example. They want to have lawyers of color. When I applied for the magistrate judge position, Mark Randon had just moved to bankruptcy, so there were no blacks on the magistrate judge bench. That was a factor, I think, that helps me. But these employers, these potential employers, they don't want to sacrifice quality.
That's right.
So they will certainly give you a plus if they need to have greater diversity, but they're not going to do it in a way that's going to sacrifice the quality. Something that I have seen, and this is one thing I really wanted to emphasize to you now, I've seen in the U.S. Attorney's Office, my husband, who's a partner in Bodman, has talked about it. It's a lot of young people, and I'm not talking about, you know, a lot of young black people now. I'm talking about like young people who come into the law firms, the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're not respectful to the senior staff. They're not respectful to Barton Quaid, who's the U.S. Attorney a lot of times. They don't want to go to the events that are outside of the office, you know, the ball game where you're supposed to network, or to the barrister's ball when you're supposed to network with clients. They are complain, they have bad attitudes. I can go on about the way that some young people are not setting themselves up for success. And so I want you to set yourself up for success. To, when you go in there, have a positive attitude. Judge Hood also talked about maneuvering some of the obstacles to make them into a positive. When something happens, instead of being confrontational about it at that moment, take a moment. Think about how you're going to respond. And the really smart, successful lawyers that you see, I've seen Judge Roberts do this many, many times. She'd run into an obstacle, someone tell her no. She'd say, and she'd sit back and think about how she was going to get around that obstacle. Be thoughtful about it in a way that doesn't hurt you. So, you know, they talk about the intelligence of high achievement, getting the best grades. That's all important. But it's also important to have high emotional intelligence, high EQ. And start working on that now as you interact with your professors, as you interact with potential employers. And the last thing I'll say, because I know that the other people want to talk as well, is that the people that you're meeting right now, the people, your adjunct professors, everyone who you run into is a potential employer in the future.
That's right.
And I did not realize, when I started as a first year at Wayne, and I would go to Wolverine Bar Association receptions for law students, some of the people who I met that very first time, I still see. You have no idea how really, in a lot of ways, small the Detroit legal community is. As Debbie said, these are all my friends, you know, and especially these three beautiful women here, I've known for many years. And so if you did something that was disrespectful disrespectful or embarrassing, and Cylenthia found out about it, then she could tell me. I mean, you just really want to be on your P's and Q's. I'll give you a short story to show how short-sighted some people are. There was a young man who he was an extern at my husband's, he was an extern at the court, at the federal district court. He was also at my husband's firm. And he was sitting there talking to the partner, the managing partner of the firm and of other people, and he said he really wasn't interested in the law. What he really wanted to do was to be a stand-up comedian. And that was just, I mean, it was like, really? So now my husband knows this, I know it. Really be thoughtful about the way that you present yourself so that you don't close any doors.
And may I chime in on that as well? I want to echo everything that they just said, and I'm sorry, Ty, I know this is the problem with judges, you know, and lawyers. We run our mouths, we take over. But I did go to Dykema. I went to Dykema, Gossett, through the Wolverine Bar Association, which is the first point I want to make. You have to network. Elizabeth just hit it. You have to network, folks, and you need to start now. I met Jennifer Granholm as a law student, and I started networking with her then. Everything she accomplished, I would take the article, I'd write her a note as a law student and say, congratulations to you. I knew this woman was going places, and I knew I wanted to continue to be able to know her. Jennifer Granholm ultimately appointed me to the bench. I've never been to her home, wasn't a personal thing. She saw me in organizational things, in different settings, when I was president of this or that or the next thing, and that's a relationship I continue to build. The same thing with Judge Hood. Judge Hood is someone I met when I was a law student. When I graduated and was sworn in, I went to Judge Hood and she swore me in for the federal bench. I mean, not bench, but federal bar to practice. Judge Ford came to the Wolverine Bar when I was president of Wolverine Bar, and she was running to become a judge. These are relationships. Elizabeth and I served on the Wolverine Bar Board together, and Terrance is now the current president of the Association of Black Judges, which I'm a past president of. And when he went on the bench, I was president and went to his ceremony and presented him with his banner for his flag. These are all relationships, and those relationships are the people that will be your clients, your future employers. My mentee in law school turned out later to hire me to work for the city of Detroit. I mean, these are all the kinds of things that you need to be about doing now. Secondly, what's the other benefit? Well, the Wolverine Bar Association is the place, the entity that placed me at Dykema through the summer clerkship program. I'd have never gotten to Dykema Gossett, I'm telling you now. My grades weren't going to get me there. The school I was at, which was Detroit College of Law, non-MSU at that time, so was not affiliated with MSU, was not going to get me there because silk stocking firms like Dykema and Bodman and other big firms like that at the time, Honigman, Miller, etc., they like to hire people who are coming from the Yales, Harvards, Michigans of the world, not DCL, okay? So the Wolverine Bar Association opened that door by having a summer clerkship program that allowed me to come in as a first-year evening student. So I didn't even have all the requisite first-year student classes at that point. But I was able to get that exposure, and then, like they all said, you've got to do the work. Somebody opened the door for me, but I had to do the work. By the end of that summer, Dykema was impressed enough to invite me to return for a summer. I was strong enough in what I had done with them that summer to be able to negotiate with them to say, I'm a first-year evening now. I'm getting ready to start my second year. May I please come back at the end of my third year? Which meant that they would wait for me to come back for 2 years, and they let me do it. That way, I was going to come back and be equal with the people who were coming back in as folks who were going to be graduating the next year. And when I went back in, they offered me a job as an associate, and I started there out of law school. And the judge is right. Judge Hood is absolutely correct. Judge Keith is absolutely correct. Judge Ford, absolutely correct. The law firm environment is very different, and the politics and things are very different. You have to play the game. You have to go to the socially If it means you have to circle back to your office after hours, guess what? That's what it means. I put in countless hours at Dykema. You know, as an associate, you may be expected to bill whatever. I don't know what the standard is now, but when I was at Dykema, it was $18.50, and then when I was at Lewis and Monday, it was $2,000. To bill that much, folks, you're going to be working way more than you're having to bill. And you have to do all the other things as well. You have to put in what they call face time at these social events. You have to network. You have to talk to folks. And you also have to understand you're going to get some of the jobs that you don't want to get. You're going to get the grunt work because that's just how it goes. First off, all new associates have to pay their dues. But when you are African American or you are a woman, you are going, or you are another racial minority group member, you are going to have different standards placed upon you. It's just a fact of life. I'm just telling you, that has not changed. I have mentees at every level, from elementary school to colleagues on the bench right now with me who are mentees of mine. They all talk to me about the same kinds of things. People who are in law firms right now, they're still experiencing the same kinds of things that I experience. People will shave your hours, so you have to watch your hours. People will give you not the plum assignments. If you're not getting in there and making that face time and letting yourself be present and circling around, do you have something for me to do? Hit the big partners, you know who they are. Ask them for work. Ask them to allow you to go to lunch with them. Take them to lunch. Make yourself known so that you can ingratiate yourself and create opportunities by doing that. And lastly, in terms of obstacles, folks, you're going to have them the rest of your life. I'm a sitting judge. This is my 9th year, starting April 10th of this year. I will have completed 9 years on the bench. I have sat on several statewide judicial committees for different things, being appointed by the State Bar of Michigan or being appointed by whomever, the Supreme Court Chief Justice or whomever. I have been the only Black person in the room. I have been the only woman in the room. Those struggles that we've talked about are still real, they are still alive, and they still occur. And the exact situation that Judge Hood described happened to me on a committee where I was the only Black female and one of 3 women, and there was 1 Black male on the committee, and that was actually the then Chief Judge of the Wayne County Circuit Court. I presented an idea for 3 meetings in a row. I had to start after the 2nd meeting with me presenting the idea, and people just, like it didn't even get said, I started networking behind the scenes. I didn't get mad and take my marbles and run away from the table. I didn't get an attitude. I started networking. I went to everybody at lunch, every single member of the committee, and tried to explain why this was important until I got enough of them to listen. So the 3rd time when I brought it back up, I brought it up, it went like this. After lunch, I hit them all again during lunch. After lunch, a white colleague, male, brought up the exact same thing, and then it was, oh, yes, this is a great idea. These are just the facts of life, and you have to learn to navigate them, and you have to learn to continue to be persistent, not give up. You can't quit. That cannot be a part of your vocabulary. This is a tough profession. It requires you to be tough, diligent, and excellent in what you do.
Can I add something? I assume all of them are aspiring to be in major law firms, all almost. When I was in law school, that was what people wanted. Let me say this. What I think being better is, since I've been married to a partner for 23 years, in March will be 23 years, what I think that, a white partner, what I think that means is, not only do you work harder, it means a lot more. It means you come up with an idea no one had thought of, and you actually have law to support it that no one had read, or people had read, but you saw it differently.
Right.
Therefore, because of your unique, creative, innovative interpretation and supporting case law, it's nothing to look, anybody can go look up cases, can anybody interpret them in a way that get that partner that you're trying to have lunch with summary judgment.
That's right.
Do you get him summary judgment and you have lunch, you might have a plan.
You got his attention.
You might, I hope. Now, you gotta get a bunch of them, though. Don't think you did well and now you got your A. Forget it. It doesn't ever stop. Because once you do become some sort of junior or whatever entry-level partnership they have, there are levels of partnership. And once you're a partner, a major, senior partner, there's levels within those levels. So what does that mean? As I had said earlier, the money. I mean, I don't know how to say it any nicer, but that's what it boils down to. You can call it billables, you can call it whatever you want. But it means money. If you bring in clients, client development, whatever you want to call it, money, then you can begin to secure your position. But she said something, it's a jungle in there. I mean, it's silk stocking, but it's a jungle. Because who brought in the client? Who knew the client previously? What if it's just this aspect you want it for antitrust, but somebody is already doing it corporate with that client?
Right.
Whose client is it?
Can I touch on that real quick?
It's a whole.
The key piece of discussion here is one, little things matter. Little things matter. It changes the course of a spaceship going to the moon, going to Mars. It's the same thing with your career. That's number one. Number two, if you become a partner, if you seek to become a partner, those little things, those little social skills are the key pieces in being able to elevate and maneuver your way around. My uncle keeps every written correspondence he receives from everybody. Okay? Because he keeps track of those relationships. Relationships matter. They make the difference of your success.
Quick question, real quick advice, very, very quick. I suggest that each of you pursue or consider a judicial clerkship. I strongly suggest that.
That's one of the areas that really still needs a lot of work. And the other thing I would say, because we've said, here's how to get around an issue. I know Lila Cobble's out there, so she knows I'm not opposed to stirring something up if it has to be. But I do think when you're in those settings where you're the only one, things happen because you're at the table. And part of your role is to make sure that when you're not at the table,
That's right.
people will think like you are there.
That's
And
right.
so they won't forget that, there are other people who are not at the table with them when those people aren't there.
Well, we thank you, judges, for your great advice. We have run over, so we aren't going to do the question and answer portion. But I'd like to thank our audience. This is our program, and thank you for coming.
If it's okay, I at least for me, and I don't know about my colleagues, I am actually recovering from knee surgery, so I'm actually still off. I go back to the doctor Thursday, so wish me luck. I hope I can go back to work next week. But I can stick around for any of you who have any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I also believe I have cards with me. Although since I'm off work, I'm not sure if I have any right now, but if I don't, I certainly would be happy to give you my information.
All right, my case for this afternoon, got it, I didn't even adjourn it. Someone had come in, divine order here, and I have some literature that explains our family history, and I can answer anything you want.
For anybody that can stick around.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Continued success.